breaking news from WCCO.
Thanks for joining us on CBSN Minnesota.
We're monitoring another night of protests in Brooklyn Center. Hundreds of people are gathered for a sixth straight evening to demonstrate against the police shooting and death of Daunte Wright.
We're going to take a live look right now from Sky 4, right over the Brooklyn Center Police Department. As you can see, there's a large crowd growing there. It's been slowly growing by the hour. This comes as Brooklyn Center's mayor announces that there is no curfew for the city of Brooklyn Center tonight.
We have team coverage for you this evening. We want to begin with our Reg Chapman, who is there right now. So, Reg, what's happening?
Well, right now, Frank, this crowd is very energized, and you said as a large crowd that you saw the live shot from Chopper Sky 4, but actually it's a crowd that's bigger than most nights before. There's more than 1,000 people here, and the people continue to come as the night progresses. Knowing that there is no curfew here in Brooklyn Center, I believe, has caused more people to come out to be more vocal, protesting and using their First Amendment rights. What we do know is that it's this barrier, this buffer that's over to the side of me that separates the protesters from the precinct. It's about a 6-foot buffer, but tonight, which is different, is we don't see officers out in front. There are actually military vehicles separating the officers, so actually the protesters cannot see the officers from a point of view. They have to look beyond the vehicles to see them, so there's not much of that going on. Here, I've seen the members of the freedom fighters here stopping what looked like people starting to shake the fence, but they stopped that immediately. So there are people out here on the ground trying to keep the peace, trying to make sure that everybody is just protesting and supporting their First Amendment rights. We have people over to the side that are still feeding the protesters. There's a large medic presence here in Brooklyn Center, but right now, a large crowd, more than 1,000 people that are here right now, mainly peaceful, a lot of speeches, even some prayers. We're seeing a lot of families here. I'm seeing smaller children here with their mom and dads or with their guardians. So right now it seems to be a very peaceful protest, but it's a very large protest. But as you say, there's no curfew tonight, Frank and Amelia, so we will be here to let you know what is going to happen as the night progresses, guys.
For sure. Reg, thanks for the update. We'll get back to you for sure. We appreciate that. Prosecutors charged former police officer Kim Potter with second-degree manslaughter for shooting and killing 20-year-old Daunte Wright. Potter shot Wright during a traffic stop on Sunday after mistaking her taser for a gun, according to the police chief. Wright had a warrant out for his arrest. The police association said she did not mean for this to happen.
If you live in or around the Twin Cities, there is a chance that you have seen a member of the Minnesota National Guard in the past few weeks.
Between the trial of Derek Chauvin and the unrest in Brooklyn Center, hundreds of guardsmen have been activated.
Erin Hassanzadeh is right outside our station in downtown Minneapolis, and she has more on that. Hi there, Erin.
Yeah, hi, Frank and Amelia. You can see the National Guard right here behind us, and it's a sight that so many people in the Twin Cities are probably familiar with by now, seeing a Humvee or a little group like the one up there parked on their city streets, maybe in their neighborhoods, right outside their homes or even their businesses. And it's something that people are having mixed reactions to. We spoke with people and a few business owners today about how they're feeling about the military presence in the metro. Hark Cafe is in downtown Minneapolis, and the owner tells us she looks out her window every day to see huge concrete barriers, barbed wire fencing, and of course National Guard members. And she feels that it looks threatening. It feels threatening. It makes her feel less safe. But then we also talked to another business owner in Loring Park at the Lotus restaurant. They've had issues with break-ins and vandalism, they tell us, over the past year or so. And they tell me they're comforted by the National Guard's presence, that they feel they're doing an excellent job and that they're needed to provide some calm.
It is deeply upsetting to look across the street and see multiple armed soldiers carrying assault rifles across the street from us every day. We are in opposition to the occupation of our city by the military.
These guys have been out there for 10 to 12 hours, and they go back home to base and they sleep on hardwood floors, and sometimes they don't have a warm meal to eat. And I've seen it personally, and it's, it's not by choice that they're here. So we see them standing there smiling at everybody, talking to people, they're answering questions.
And we also talked to people living in the neighborhoods around this military presence. Same thing, mixed reaction there as well. Some people describing it as sort of eerie, sort of feeling like they live in a police state of sorts, and that it's a little bit odd for them. Others say they think the Guard is necessary and that they are happy to see them out here. We're expecting to see them as we, of course, await the verdict in the Chauvin trial as well. Frank and Amelia.
All right. Thank you, Erin. Before Daunte Wright and George Floyd were killed, other families experienced similar tragedies. They share a common grief and common goal of justice for Daunte and George and their loved ones. Caroline Cummings shares some of their stories.
I'm just really hurt for my son because, like, he doesn't have his father now, and it's like it's kind of stressful on me because, like, I really don't want to do this by myself.
China Whitaker, mother to Daunte Wright Jr. and Daunte's mom, Katie Wright.
My son is going to be buried in a few days, and that's not okay.
Are bound together by their loss and their grief, but they are not alone in their mourning. A group of mothers, fathers, siblings, and friends share in a collective pain as families who've lost loved ones to law enforcement.
We wear a cloak like no other, and we stand here today in solidarity.
Valerie Castile's son, Philando, was shot and killed during a traffic stop nearly 5 years ago. She says Daunte's death struck a chord. Both her son and Daunte drove white cars, were pulled over, and shared the same tragic fate.
I'm mad as hell again, and again, and again, and again.
All of this amid Derek Chauvin's murder trial for George Floyd's death is traumatizing them once again, these families say. And they say there hasn't been any change since they've lost their loved ones years ago.
A lot of the things that we demanded back then have fell on deaf ears.
Tashira Garraway formed the group Families Supporting Families Against Police Violence. She says as the country says Daunte Wright and George Floyd's names, she hopes others like her fiance, Justin Tigan, aren't forgotten.
No one knows his story. No one knows hardly about Cordell Handy. No one hardly knows about Hardell Sherrill and Jeffrey Smith and Demetrius Hale and Marcus Golden and Kobe Heisler. And then they want to isolate these stories.
Caroline Cummings, WCCO 4 News.
Earlier this evening, students and teachers in Columbia Heights gathered to remember Wright.
You're not alone in these emotions, in this feeling.
Wright had been a student at nearby Columbia Heights High School. This group of people came to Cordiac Park to show support for his family. After a few speakers, there was a silent walk to deal with the pain, grief, and frustration following the death of the 20-year-old.
Meanwhile, people continue to visit the site in Brooklyn Center where Daunte died. We saw different small groups walk up to the site earlier this evening. This marks the 6th night in a row people have come together in his honor.
A funeral for Daunte Wright is going to be held Thursday in North Minneapolis. The Reverend Al Sharpton will deliver the eulogy. Here's another shot from Sky 4 at the crowd that's gathered in front of the Brooklyn Center Police Department. There is no curfew this evening. Our Reg Chapman's on the ground. He estimated this crowd to be about 1,000 people, but said that so far all the protests appear to be very peaceful, and you can see the police are not near the fencing. They're much further, either in the building, on top of the building, or near the building. Less conflict this evening, at least at this hour, according to Reg on the ground. There is one curfew in effect in the Twin Cities that we know of this evening. That is in the city of Champlin. That runs from 11 o'clock until 4. We'll, of course, continue to monitor all these developments of the protest and any possible new things that happen.
And we will, of course, bring you the latest about these events, plus much more ahead in our news at 10.